The main problems in Nepal that in the medical sphere is injuries and illnesses caused by burning wood. Because there isn't a good source of fuel in Nepal, they burn wood. And one of the most common things with the way they burn wood is they burn it inside their house. In the middle of the room, they have no chimney. So, and there's very little protection around the fireplace here. So you can see that children can just run up to the fire, and if the parents are out tending to the livestock or doing farming, there might not be anyone to watch the kids, and so we see a lot of bad burns there amongst the little kids. So we treat a lot of, in our medical facilities, we treat a lot of burn injuries in the children, and also I think probably the #1 illness in Nepal is respiratory, caused by breathing wood smoke. There are no chimneys. Every morning, this is the scene that you see firing up the morning fires for the tea, and that smoke is inhaled. Also, there's big hygiene issues. The toilets are very basic, and we've been working with engineering groups here in the U.S. to try to understand what we could do. And this Engineers Without Borders group is a good example. There's a very active Engineers Without Borders group, some of you are nodding your heads, here in Massachusetts. So you might want to find out more about things that they're involved in. They do a lot of really good projects. And so this group of engineers was very interested to try to do a demonstration project of how to deal with better hygiene on Mount Everest at the base camp. So this is what Mount Everest Base Camp looks like. Their idea was to make a demonstration project for how to manage waste in base camp that could be extended to all mountain areas of Nepal, all mountainous areas in the foothills of Nepal, and also around the world as well. So this is what Everest Base Camp looks like. It's a glacier with a veneer of rock on top. The tents are put on top of that. The sanitation facilities are really quite basic. You have a bathroom on a glacier, so you can't dig a hole in that. And you know, here's what the camp looks like when it's being dismantled. It's just a glacier with rocks on it.
And what is the altitude of the base camp?
Hi, sorry.
What is the altitude of the
The altitude of the base camp is 5,300 meters, which is 17,000 feet. Thank you for your question, Dr. Sengupta. And this is the nearest village to the base camp. And you can see it's on a glacial moraine. The glacier is right behind it. You can't build buildings on ice. So we just, any permanent structures have to be on the permanent soil, which is the moraine of the glacier on the side. And there is quite a bit of management of rubbish going on. This is the trash being sorted into tins, plastics, bottles, paper. Some of it is burned. Quite a lot of it is carried out and recycled. But nothing is being done to manage the human waste. It's much more difficult to solve the problem of human waste. It's very hard to figure out what to do about it. So currently the waste is carried in these drums from base camp down and thrown on a pit on the side of the glacier. And here you can see a gentleman that is sourcing water, and the waste is thrown on top of the stones right behind where you saw those buildings, and it's leaking into the groundwater. So it's polluting that. So this group of engineers has come up with this idea to make a waste treatment plant which would process the waste, and you can see the cutaway of the building, and this is the diagram. The waste is put into the inlet here. It goes down here into this tank, and then it sits there over time and decomposes, and it creates methane gas, and that's stored in this dome, and then the methane gas is piped off here and can be used for cooking gas. And then the waste is in that process of they call it digestion of the waste or fermentation. The pathogens, the bugs in the waste are treated, and then it comes out here and it can be used as agricultural compost. It's commonly known as the biogas process. So here you can see, again, the building here with some solar light coming in, some passive solar, so the sun can come in there, warm that up. The tank is covered by this building. There's also a storage tank here because every climbing season at Mount Everest, 12,000 kilos of waste are produced in a 2-month period. And you can't throw all that right into here, or it would kill off the chemical reaction. So you have to store it in here, and it has to be fed into there slowly, thus creating employment for the local porters as well. So we've had a collaboration between some universities in the US and also in Kathmandu, and they've built some scale models at Kathmandu University, and they've been studying the optimum temperatures at which to have this reaction take place, and some of the substrate they need to feed in there, and how to manage the reactions. And there's been quite a bit of interesting findings and determining, how hot this thing needs to be kept, because it's at a very high location, so it's important to maintain the right temperature. There's been a lot more environmental awareness in recent years in Nepal, and this is kind of a tribute to the local people there that live in these high areas, the Sherpas in this case. Also, there are other tribes represented in these photos. There's Rai people, Tamang people. Nepal is quite a mixed, heterogeneous place with 35 different ethnic tribes living together. And these are the Sherpas doing their task on the mountain. And these are the people who are really the stewards of the high mountain region, and they really care a lot about where they live. We work together a lot, practicing our different safety techniques together with them, trying to raise awareness of public health. And as you probably know, in the education system, there's quite a focus on just learning to read and write. And doing math is secondary. Learning about, the human body and some of these other issues which we might think are really important, like basic public health concerns, are really not dealt with in the educational system. So we're trying to bring another perspective in for teaching. And also, again, supporting the local people is so important to do, but while we're passing on what we think is important knowledge, it's also really important to reinforce their culture that they already have and is quite ancient and has been really adapted through their indigenous life there. And here they are having a prayer ceremony in the base camp where they bless all of the mountain climbing equipment, and they have brought a village priest here, and they're having some rituals there. And these are the people who are the stewards of the mountain and the local area. And we can't affect change there without their buy-in, as they call it. And it's so critical that we can, work together with them in a way that's very sustainable for their own survival, for their own employment, and also for their own education and culture. And then, so here we have the group of people on the top of Mount Everest. They've achieved their goals.
Then could you talk a bit about the preparation that is needed to achieve that goal of climbing the peak, reaching the peak?
Yes, of course. I mean, what is the highest mountain right around here? Dartmouth, right? We're in Dartmouth, right?
Yeah.
What's the nearest highest mountain? Who could tell?
Katahdin.
What's it called?
Katahdin in Maine.
Mount Katahdin.
Yeah.
What's a nearer higher mountain? Mount Katahdin is in Maine, that's good, that's a very high mountain. What's a nearer Mount Tom or Mount Wachusett? How far would you have, if you're gonna drive in a car, how long would it take to get there? An hour. So you could go in your car for 1 hour and you could climb a mountain. And that would be a really good place to start. Is you guys should get together, write down your names in that book over there on your table. I'm sorry, what was your name? Tony. Tony? Oh, Dan. Okay, sorry. Okay, don't touch me. And be sure to write down your name, and then we'll share all your names. And you guys should go to Mount Tom or Mount Wachusett, get together in a car, and go there and climb up that mountain. And that's the way to start. And make sure you're really well prepared. I'm glad you mentioned that. It's cold out there right now. Weather can change quickly, right? So you need to check the forecast. Like you wouldn't want to be going up there right before a huge storm is supposed to blow in. You could be buried in snow or high winds. Make sure you have some of the essential things that you need to climb a mountain, such as what? Water. In your maybe a little backpack with water. What else would be in there?
Map.
A map. Good. And knowledge of where you're going. What are you looking for? Landmarks. What else might you want to have in your backpack? Some food, maybe a warm jacket, gloves, hat. So after you did Mount Tom or Mount Wachusett, then you might want to go for a higher mountain like Mount Katahdin. And that's a more extreme undertaking, right? Has anyone ever been to Mount Katahdin? Have you guys seen what that's like in the wintertime up there? It's pretty, I've heard it's pretty extreme sometimes, and it's really serious. Some of you are shaking your head. Yeah, so I think if you can do winter walking around here, that's a great place to start. And summer walking is good too. I mean, you don't need as much gear like, in the winter you might want a good pair of boots, right? In the summer you could probably do it in just, some hiking shoes. And then another good places to prepare for this, of course, is, going to higher peaks in North America, in the United States, Mount Washington, that's a good spot. You might want to, and also go to your gym and do some exercising. There's these great stair climber machines, or you could go hike around the campus and hike on stairs and get prepared that way. And Dr. Sengupta, do you have any other ideas for how they could prepare?
Mental preparation.
Mental preparation. What would you suggest?
Meditation or any relaxation technique.
Very good. Focusing on the goal. And as you guys probably, some of you have done when you're outside and you're working outside and you're focusing on something, you tend to forget maybe things that are stressing you out. And so it's a good time to really get back to essentials. And I think mental preparation is a great point in whatever task you're trying to accomplish. So I was thinking I might show another something. It's 10 minutes to 6.
So if you could wrap it up by 6, we got 15 minutes of talk, questions? Or would you like to start the question period now?
I was thinking I maybe could show you guys a video
Sure.
about, I was on an NBC TV show about a rescue on Mount Everest.
Yeah.
Hall was the starting point. In mid-April, Hall and the Harrises joined up with a large commercial climbing expedition and drove to Everest Base Camp in Tibet, the staging area for the 6-week assault on the mountain. At the same time, on the same route, a 45-year-old American named Dan Mazur was leading a much smaller expedition of his own. Mazur is one of America's most successful high-altitude climbers. He reached the summit of Everest in 1991. Now, He's a professional guide. Though Mazur and Hall were on parallel courses, they never met. Climbing Everest takes weeks. Mountaineers like Mazur and Hall gradually ascend to camps at ever higher altitudes, trying to adapt their bodies to avoid altitude sickness before making the final push to the summit. A documentary filmmaker went along with Hall's group. Hall gave expert commentary along the way. But other climbers like Dan Mazur were still on track. And so were 3 other members of Hall's expedition, including Hall himself. He still had a chance to fulfill his dream. Was how quickly this push to the summit would turn deadly. Hall, at age 50, was ready to go. He started for the summit around midnight on May 25th. Just before he left, he called his wife Barbara on a satellite phone.
He sounded very lucid, he sounded full of anticipation, full of hope and strength.
Farther down the mountain, American guide Dan Mazur was preparing his clients for their push to the summit. The weather was clear, but he knew how quickly that could change on Everest. Everest does not tolerate bad decisions. The realm above 26,000 feet is called the death zone. So cold and so deprived of oxygen, it's not compatible with human life. The mountain is dotted with corpses up there. Climbers actually have to step over some of them on the way up. Everyone on Hall's team had also heard about David Sharp, passed over by several groups of climbers who deemed him too far gone to save.
There was this Englishman who was hiding under a rock, and 30 members of various parties passed him by and none did anything to help him. Our expedition 50 years ago would never have considered leaving a man like that. We were very much aware of our responsibilities to look after any person on the mountain who was in distress. I think the priority of the climbers who did not stop to help David Sharp was to get to the top, and the welfare of a member of an expedition was very secondary. There is no doubt at all that there's been a lowering of standards in recent years with the commercialisation on Everest. And as a consequence, people are being neglected and are dying. In our day, there's no doubt at all the responsibility of looking after people who are in danger or in distress was far more important than getting to the summit.
Hall was climbing with a large commercial expedition. Everyone on the summit push had been together for weeks and knew each other well. The final ascent is marked by 3 technical sections, commonly called steps. At sea level, they'd just be moderate rock climbs. But up in the death zone, where the lack of oxygen saps your strength and may impair your judgment, the 3 steps can cost you the summit or your life. Hall and his Sherpas easily cleared the 3 steps. In fact, Lincoln Hall and his Sherpas did reach the summit at about 9 a.m. on May 25th. Back at base camp, his team celebrated. But just minutes later, the news from the mountain turned grim. A member of Hall's team, the visually impaired climber Thomas Weber, had fallen behind. He never reached the summit, and now his guide radioed that Weber was having a crisis. It was a terrible scene. Weber suddenly turned to his guide and said, "I'm dying." Then he collapsed. Just like that, a member of Lincoln Hall's team, Thomas Weber, became another body on Everest. And the news suddenly got even worse.
So he's very bad, and if it's possible, send one Sherpa up to help Lincoln, because he's nearly dead also. Send one Sherpa.
In fact, they did send another Sherpa, but that didn't make any difference. Lincoln was stuck at 28,000 feet. The Harrises were 10,000 feet below at base camp, helpless to do anything but plead with him.
You've just got to get down, mate, Richard. Chris and I and Mike are all waiting here for you, okay? And Dorsey and Dylan and Barbara, they're all worried about you. So you just give it your best and keep coming down so you can talk to them, mate.
But Lincoln wouldn't budge. The Sherpas recorded that he was irrational. He wanted to lie down and go to sleep, a life-threatening move. The Sherpas couldn't carry him. They were too weak themselves from the lack of oxygen. Crucial hours passed.
Lincoln is still wounded, and the two Sherpas that are with him are beginning to suffer the same problems that Lincoln is suffering, which means that the Sherpas are now needing rescue.
It was 7 p.m. The Sherpas had spent 9 hours trying to talk Lincoln down the mountain. That meant a total of 19 hours exposed in the death zone. The expedition leader knew the Sherpas were in danger of dying too.
Very difficult to do, but difficult to
We understand that, Alex, and I think we need to do more for show us to die due to what's happening at the moment.
Lincoln Hall was now lying in the snow, unconscious. The Sherpas were running out of oxygen. No helicopter could fly high enough to reach them. There was only one choice left.
It's bad enough if this year ago, this year was obviously if the company plus leave allocation, they can be able.
The Sherpas wanted to have no doubt, so they poked Lincoln in the eyeball. No response. At 7:20 p.m., they declared him dead.
Okay, now
As night fell, the Sherpas collected Lincoln Hall's backpack, extra oxygen, food, and water, and left him at 28,000 feet. In Australia, there was no call from Lincoln. She got another call instead.
We got a message from the wife of another member of the expedition to say that, in fact, he was in difficulty and still quite close to the summit. And then that's when I really felt my heart sink.
Another corpse, just a stone's throw from the body of visually impaired climber Thomas Weber. Mount Everest. The temperature was 15 below zero and falling by the minute. Lincoln Hall, father, husband, mountaineer, was lost to the frigid night. Or so everyone thought. Missouri might have expected to find Lincoln Hall's body at any moment. He'd been climbing since midnight with 2 clients and a Sherpa, aiming to summit Everest mid-morning. Now, at 7:30, the summit was just 2 hours away.
We were in the clear, and we all felt good, and we thought